everybody, I'm George from Ireland. Here I am, Windsor. That's Windsor Town Hall behind me, and a really annoying motorbike in front of me. See the statue of Queen Anne. So here we are, New Windsor they sometimes call it, because Old Windsor's 2 miles further down the River Thames. A town of only about 30,000 people, a very, very historic town, most associated with the house of Mountbatten Windsor, as in the British royal family. They were obviously called von Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to 1917, but in the First World War, because of Teutonophobia, they changed their name. I'll take you a brief walking tour of a bit of Windsor. Now it's on a hill rising above the River Thames. So the Anglo-Saxons were here, and indeed Edward the Confessor was in New Windsor. The Normans moved it, sorry, it was in Old Windsor, moved it to Windsor. They very rarely say New Windsor. I think the Latin name of it is Windsor Nova. Okay, so here on High Street, like most towns in Ireland and Great Britain, it's got a high street. We're going to see a statue of the Widow of Windsor, Victoria, the Empress of India. And so here we are. We came to Ireland at least twice. Sceptre and orb, there she is. The woman only stood 5'1", married her first cousin, keep it in the family, Prince Albert. Okay, and so after he died in 1861, she went into prolonged depression, was in mourning, and some people even called for the abolition of the monarchy. But then she met John Brown, her Scottish gillie, and that rather cheered her up. You may see the film about it, Mrs. Brown, starring Dame Judi Dench and Sir Billy Connolly. So behind me is Windsor Castle. I don't propose to concentrate on this. Film that little bit. If you're ever coming here, I'll show you the way to go to buy your tickets. So buy them on the day. Better idea, buy online in case they're sold out. It's not open every day. Bear in mind, not open every day. Is it Tuesday, Wednesday usually closed? There's ceremonies like for the Knights of the Garter or a state visit is closed. Now Sunday evenings you can often go into St George's Chapel to attend worship. Line up here, say that you're going to divine worship, and then through that gate for the evening service. So go to Evensong in St George's Chapel, where Meghan and Harry got married. So you see some armed police. Police are not usually armed in the United Kingdom. And then you see these people in these sort of navy blue uniforms with the red facings, and they work here. They're sort of directing the tourists. I'm not sure what to call them. This is Castle Hill this way. So a lot of this is a 19th century extension meant to look medieval, when there's a craze for all things medieval. The older it was, the more respectable it was. But anyway, if you're ever coming, if you want to buy tickets, come up Castle Hill here, and here the visitor entrance. Coming in small groups, large groups of tourists will be led in here. These ladies in that uniform will direct you through here, through the old stables and coaching sheds, buying your tickets. Airport style security. No, you do not need to show a passport, but they will scan you and your bags. So just no knives or guns, please. I once did have to help a Danish tourist because he took a Swiss Army knife with him, and guides are not allowed in there. But anyway, let's down to Auburn Street. So then you wander around as you like. Allowed to film and take photos outside any building, not to take photos and films inside buildings. If you're discreet, they won't notice. If they see you, they just tell you to stop filming or to stop taking photos. They're not going to confiscate your phone. But if they see you filming, your opening gambit is crucial. You say, no speaking English, all right? And then you're going to get away with it. So sometimes you'll see the queue right up here before opening time. Okay, so walking down St Auburn Street, I don't know why it's called that. And there are several pubs and restaurants, so tourism is quite big. We're only 20 miles due west of London. We're very close to Heathrow Airport. You'll see it flying overhead. So the Windsor Castle, the largest inhabited castle in the world, and the oldest inhabited castle in the world. Not the largest and not the oldest, is the inhabited. Makes it superlative in both cases. Right, so Windsor is quite a middle-class town, and always got Eton, the boys' boarding school, over the River Thames. The castle was plonked here because it was the only hill for miles around, commanding a crossing over the River Thames, where the River Thames is very narrow, but the castle doesn't go all the way down to the river. I would have built some sort of tower down there and some sort of walled corridor. And look at this, is a parish church. Obviously there is a chapel, St George's, which is huge, where lots of monarchs are buried under the floor including Henry VI, the founder of Eton, including the late Elizabeth II. That crypt, only the royal family are allowed in there. So much they do is in public. They would like to have their mourning ceremony in private. The committal ceremony was in private. So she died, was it the 8th of September 2022, and her funeral about 10 days later, and all that was filmed in St George's Chapel, and then her body was lowered beneath the floor, and then later we didn't get to see it. The royal family went for their private committal ceremony, buried beside her husband, Prince Philip. Okay, a little bit of a graveyard there. And so some more of the working parts of the castle. Over 100 people live in the castle, so they're employees of the royal family. And by the way, don't try trespassing, because look, under section 128, the Serious Organised Crime Act and Police Act, trespass on this site is a criminal offence. Trespass is usually a civil wrong, but royal palaces, army bases and so forth, it's a crime. Okay, and look at these huge mews, these sheds here, for the horse-drawn carriages in time gone by. I'm not sure they put motorised vehicles there in more recent decades. So there's Windsor Home Park, which is usually not open to the public. There is an open doors weekend, I'm not sure if it applies to this. And then there's Windsor Home Park, so Windsor Great Park, which is open to the public, which is like at least 3 miles north to south, at least 2 miles east to west. Beside it is a royal lodge where the inglorious Prince Andrew, Duke of York, lives, playing golf. You obviously can't get to it. Okay, here, a rear entrance. This is for staff only. Red is a royal road, you see. So Windsor is a lovely little town, apart from that. And you see, like, it's mostly 19th century. There we go. So the castle built in 1070, but almost none of it is original. There was the motte. They forced the local Anglo-Saxon peasantry at Sword Point to pile up earth. They built it in wood. They want to build a castle fast, Motte and Bailey Castle. And the motte at the top of the mountain was very small, and the Bailey below it was big, where they could have most things. They could retreat up the motte in times of turbulence. Now, it took decades for the earth to subside. Once it was settled, able to rebuild it in stone, extended, upgraded, and yeah. So there are various wards, upper ward, lower ward, much of it you're never allowed into. So state visit takes place there. The state visit of President Emmanuel Macron of France a few months ago was there. Now, President Donald J. Trump has come for a state visit, he said next year, and methinks he should be hosted here. They either do them here or at Buckingham Palace. Having said that, in the summer of 1994, King Olaf of Norway, he was hosted for a state visit to the United Kingdom in Edinburgh. So there we go, it's very low rise. No skyscrapers out around here, they don't want it spoiling the skyline. And 19th century buildings, you can see they're never more than 6 stories high because they had no lifts. And it'd be quite difficult to go up and down a lot because imagine there were some elderly people, mobility impaired, no hip replacements back then, no Zimmer frames. Women were pregnant more often than they are today, carrying babies. Some people didn't have running water, carrying buckets of water up and down the stairs, so you didn't want it too tall. Furthermore, they wouldn't have steel girders to the late 19th century, so buildings would have collapsed under their own weight. There's only then they were able to construct skyscrapers. Okay, so look at this public house here. These are the Two Brewers. The Two Brewers, it's called. And of course, the castle had its brewery. The Thames water was too foul for consumption, so because it wasn't potable, they had to grow hops and such like. There's a hop garden nearby, and brew beer, small beer, only 1% alcohol. Even children drank beer. And then when tea came along with Catherine Braganza, the wife of King Charles II, boiling the water was cleaner. So they thought tea had health-giving properties, which it does slightly, but it was mainly the fact it was boiled. Okay, so it's called the Cambridge Gate. Look here, towards the upper ward of the castle, which we're not allowed into. Okay, there we go, and I can see a soldier in his scarlet tunic, his black busby hat on guard. And look at this gatehouse here. This is 19th century. Again, it's faux medieval. We turn around, a slightly poor visibility, unfortunately, because it's overcast, been raining. And that is the long walk, 3 miles dead straight to the Copper Horse. The Copper Horse being a memorial to George III, who was king at the time of the American Revolution. He's King of Ireland, and it was by his son, George IV, the Prince Regent, even though father and son hated each other. So that's dead straight. And this is Windsor, a great park open to the public. Windsor Home Park is that side, we're not allowed in. There's a wall, there's Frogmore Cottage where me again, Martha used to live. There's the Royal Mausoleum where Queen Victoria is buried. There's a little graveyard outside with the likes of Edward VIII, the Duke of Windsor is buried, the Duchess of Windsor, as in, goodness, how can I, Mrs. Simpson is buried, Wallace Simpson, or Wallace Warfield as she was originally, and she's not Her Royal Highness. There's no HRH on the gravestone because she was never granted that honour, much to the chagrin of her beau, Edward VIII. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Sure you want to direct message me, hire me as your tour guide in the United Kingdom, particularly the southern segment thereof. Alright, toodaloo.